Hey guys, welcome back to the Slipstream where we discuss everything motorsports and racing. I'm Ash.
I'm Trey.
I'm Sachet.
And today we're discussing something super exciting that happened this Sunday, the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And what makes this so exciting were the absolute chaos that occurred. So first of all, let's get into the history about this Grand Prix. It started off as the European GP in Baku back in 2016. And notably has seen only two multiple race winners who have won since then. Sergio Perez, who you might remember, is going to race for Cadillac next year, and Max Verstappen. Rosberg, Ricciardo, Hamilton, Bottas, and Piastri won only once. It has the most 90-degree turns of any circuit and has the second longest circuit at 6 kilometers. It's the fifth newest circuit on the calendar at just 9 years. Only Jeddah Street Circuit, Las Vegas, Miami Gardens, and Lusail International are more recent from 2021 to 23. After being renewed until 2030 for future Formula races, it is still the only active circuit in the Turkish region of the world.
So around Turkey, around the area.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And it has the stigma of what all street circuits should be like if we're going to include them on a traditional calendar. But it's only so entertaining because of the sprint races and mid-race incidences that happened this Sunday.
Yeah, of course, but going over the list of incidents that have happened in the past that make this race such an entertaining enterprise, in 2018, it was in the middle of the 2018 Azerbaijan Grand Prix where two former teammates at Red Bull, Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen, currently racing for them and actually won this recent race, clashed together with just 13 laps left to go on the main street at the end of the DRS zone. Now, granted, they kind of were fighting for position when they were trailing behind the Renault of Carlos Sainz, but there were no team orders given, and eventually it just all went to hell when they, when Max controversially brake tested him, but people were arguing that Ricciardo could have, recognized his defense a little bit better and not crashed into him. But they threw away a solid 5-6, and actually in the safety car period, when they brought out the safety car, Clément Grosjean from Haas got hit by Ericsson.
Yes.
They think that
In
Ericsson
quotes,
hit
yeah.
him in quotes, when in reality he just completely lost it. I believe it was in the kind of curved straightaway approaching Sector 3.
I think so.
He just completely lost it, hit it into the wall, and threw away a solid P6 finish, which would have been his first points.
And I think Sector 3 is such an interesting point because it has the most straights. It's kind of the easiest sector, in my opinion. Sector 1, you have multiple turns. It's the starting of the race. You have multiple turns. Sector 2 is a little better. Well, I would say that Sector 2 has a lot more turns than Sector 3. And we can see that, at least during this Sunday, a lot more drivers had a lot more struggle in Sector 2 because of race conditions. It's a lot more windy in Azerbaijan all the time. And I think that they struggled in Sector 2 more than Sector 3. So I just thought that was interesting.
But of course, I believe that there's a little bit of nuance when it comes to messing up in Sector 1 rather than Sectors 2 and 3. Because in Sector 1, you actually have two of the only four main straightaways or runoff areas after some of the main straightaways and before the 90-degree turns. But Sector 2, you're approaching the castle section, which can easily falter if you aren't paying attention or don't have your braking points correct. And then, of course, Sector 3 has arguably the fastest chicane in any single circuit. It's even faster than the Parabolica chicane in Monza. It's even faster than any other chicane on Jeddah Street Circuit, which makes up 50% of the track. So if you snap the rear wheels, you are basically taking you're flying into the wall, and you're almost replicating what Sonny Hayes did in the F1 movie in Vegas.
Oh, absolutely. And I just find the control that they had in Sector 3 really amazing for this circuit especially. I won't spoil it too much, but I just think that no one crashed in Sector 3, which was interesting. But the other sectors where they did crash, the other turns especially, was, in my opinion, that was, unwarranted. Going back to Daniel and Max, they threw away a solid 5-6 finish, and that made it the team's second double DNF of the season at that point.
That is correct. They had one in Bahrain earlier on where Daniel Ricciardo incurred some stalling problems with the malware.
Yes.
And, of course, Max Verstappen had to tangle with Lewis Hamilton when they were fighting for 11th position. And speaking of Max Verstappen, he is not the biggest fan of the circuit, I feel.
No, he is not.
Well, in recent years, he's been getting a little bit better, but in the past, he has absolutely had it.
I mean, 7 years later, I think that this circuit is just not it just doesn't work for Red Bull. I mean, Max Verstappen has obviously like
right. I mean,
he's
Max
Verstappen.
Let's talk about 2021 though.
Right. Yeah.
This was no fault of his own. It was actually a tire puncture that took him out with 3 laps to go.
Yes.
And could have cost him the world championship of that year had Lewis Hamilton not screwed it up at the restart with 2 laps left to go and gone straight off into the biggest runoff area of any circuits. So basically, tire puncture on the main straightaway. If he had even swerved a bit to the left, he would have had a life-ending or a career-ending injury.
Crash.
Yeah, and obviously we can show you that analysis in a later episode when we cover some of the bigger crashes going on. But one more incident before we go into the main coverage of the recent Azerbaijan Grand Prix. 2024, where Sergio Perez, who won the race the previous year, and Carlos Sainz, when he was with Ferrari for his last year, actually had a bit of an ensuing battle with 3 laps left to go.
Yeah, a click.
And of course, if you saw that race as they got out of turn 2 and were approaching top speeds on the second straightaway, Carlos Sainz, I don't know if it was Carlos Sainz or Sergio Perez who wasn't paying attention, but they just slammed each other into the wall, and arguably enough, it cost Ferrari the World Constructors' Championship that year. Had it not been for that crash, not only would Checo have gotten his first podium since China 2024, but Ferrari would have gotten their first Constructors since 2008 with Massa and Raikkonen as the lineup.
I distinctly remember that moment because it was a big turning point for Ferrari and may have been the deciding factor in dropping Carlos. But I do think this was a Sergio Perez situation.
Yeah,
I
because
think
he had his front right ahead by 2 millimeters to Carlos Sainz's left rear of his Ferrari.
Right.
And I don't know whether or not he decided to just take his foot off of the throttle for even a bare millisecond, but that's what caused them to just slew into the left wall.
Yep. And that's what it was. Their tires just clicked, and and that just threw them into the wall. And that was on Sergio Perez, but then Ferrari also saw Carlos's fault in that a little bit because he didn't check his rear view. But yes, they had a big crash in that wall. And after turn 2 on the final lap, the race finished under a safety car.
Yep, and it handed Oscar Piastri the win. It actually gave George Russell a pretty lucky
podium for Mercedes. That was
Russell really got lucky that day, didn't he?
Yeah,
I
Russell
remember
has
it distinctly
been
as well.
Very, very lucky in a lot of instances. Austria 2024, when Norris and Verstappen clashed. Baku 2024, where obviously Sainz and Perez crashed, and he obviously had a pretty standout performance in Las Vegas 2024, but I also felt he got a little bit lucky by Hamilton not qualifying in the front row, or they would have been battling.
Yes. Now, I would also argue that I think Russell is one of my favorite drivers, and actually the podium this weekend had my top 3 favorite drivers, so that was a dream come true.
Correct for you.
Good. But Russell, I think he actually takes advantages of these opportunities, and I think him and Kimi are 2 Mercedes drivers that really bank on this strategy of taking advantage of drivers who are either driving midfield or have a crash or hold back on braking or something, and they immediately see that, and that's how they become a better driver. That's how they gain those positions, and I think that's part of Mercedes' strategy for both their drivers, and I think that Russell is more talented in that way. So I don't know if you would call it luck or if you would call it strategy, but that's what I've been noticing. And if it's a pattern,
he could be a very emerging championship contender for now. I wouldn't say full-on world champion because he does feel a little bit performative in his interviews. I mentioned the interview in Qatar 2024.
Maybe he's just really PR trained.
He's just really PR trained, but I feel like he leans a little bit into his, like, personality a little bit much to be completely fully focused on racing. He doesn't have to be ice cold like Kimi Räikkönen, and he doesn't have to be passionate like a Kurt Busch situation.
Yeah.
But he could definitely balance out his mindset on what he really wants to attain in his racing career.
Yeah, regardless, I do think he is one of my favorite drivers, so I think his strategy
Indeed.
and the amount of podiums can actually show for that. So
yeah, definitely, including the beginning of the circus. Holy Jesus.
Yes.
And Satya is going to take us into the highlights of
I'm excited.
qualifying
Like,
and free practice.
let's get
go.
into it. Let's get into it.
All right, so we have a travesty with McLaren in qualifying position. Started at position 7 with Norris, and position 9, Piastri was in position 9, while Sainz excels to the front row and Lawson, in the top 3. And this was like the first New Zealander in the top 3.5 century in F1. And even though Ferrari finished first and second in the second free practice session, Hamilton was pretty slow
in qualifying.
Actually, the commentators were mentioned at the beginning of the race that Hamilton was very disappointed, and he really thought that his time was great and that he would earn a podium place in qualifying, and only to his surprise that he was in 12th at the end of qualifying. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I can't even imagine
the
that.
discrepancy between a podium finish and 12th. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That is
that disappointment. That disappointment is peak. Like that's ridiculous. I would be so shocked. But yeah, continue please.
Yeah, indeed. So Hamilton, obviously, as we just mentioned, is really doing poorly given that discrepancy. And as for Leclerc, oh my God, they crashed at the beginning of Sector 3 in the third quarter and didn't get the chance to finish.
Yeah, third qualifying session, they didn't even get a chance to finish. Piastri also crashed
in
in qualifying 3,
yes.
which actually makes it Piastri's first crash in any session of the season.
Oh,
just think about that for a minute.
First crash of the season.
I don't even know. And then, of course, Alpine's double disaster. But going over the race highlights, Piastri, the championship leader, on the very opening lap, I believe it was in the middle of Sector 2.
I'm so sorry. It was Sector 1.
Yeah, it was Sector 1.
5 and 6. I remember it so clearly because
he was trying to surpass the outside of Oliver. He was trying to pass the outside of Oliver Behrman, and he locked up, and he just sent it into the wall and brought out the safety car.
So let me just get into it real quick. We start with Piastri in P9 on the grid.
Yes.
We have all the cars lined up. The lights go out. And everyone takes off but Piastri.
Because he got a false start.
He had a false start, and we didn't even know about this false start until, I think we were 20 laps in or something. We were all trying to figure it out, what happened. The commentators and I were all in a state of confusion. And he had a false start, went from P9 to P20. That's down 11 places. Dead last. And he was I don't know, he was not in the right mindset, and he's trying to pass Behrman, turn 4 going into turn 5, and again, as Trey said, locks up and completely sends it into the wall.
And we find out later on that Alonso accidentally reacted to Piastri's false start, and he got a false start himself. He earned a penalty, which of course he wasn't angry about, but can you believe the amount of bad luck that Alonso has had to suffer, either through incidents or, in this case, from another driver's bad decisions?
Yes, so this reaction, or Piastri's action here, was actually so surprising that I would not blame other drivers and Alonso for having this type of reaction and
honestly.
And I didn't even actually notice Alonso's false start, and I don't think it should be counted as such, but I mean, I'm not one to argue with it, and he did serve out his 5-second time penalty, and he wasn't mad about it either, but again, I wouldn't blame any of the drivers for reacting to it.
Right, of course.
Along with Alonso, Albon also got a penalty
Yeah, he also Albon also got a penalty. He was trying to battle it out with Franco Colapinto, but he spun him out. Well, he didn't fully spin him out of the race, but he spun him out enough to warrant a pit stop and a tire change because you don't want to ever jeopardize your aerodynamic factors or anything of that sorts. And of course,
Yeah, so going off of the aerodynamics factor, the crash was really interesting because we had Colapinto, Albon was coming up on Colapinto, and they were going into the turn. And again, their wheels just clicked, and Colapinto actually took off a big chunk of Albon's wing. I saw a big, huge part just fly off, and then Colapinto went straight into the wall also. Now, Albon, he was, I think this was kind of Albon's fault.
Yeah, it was definitely Albon's fault
for taking that turn into Colapinto, but Albon came out of it unscathed, which I find a little bit infuriating that more damage was inflicted on Colapinto. But again, yes, the aerodynamics factor with the wing, that threw everything off, so he had to get that fixed. But also now on social media, because Colapinto is severely underperforming, he's now deemed as Crashapinto.
Definitely.
I hate it. I
mean, look, he really had a chance to step up the game.
He did.
Even though the Alpine underperformed this entire season and will continue to underperform, think about the stint he made in his half season at Williams in 2024 in a far more underperforming car in which they scored a quarter of the points that they have at this point in time.
I loved Colapinto for that. He was also in 2024 one of my favorite rookies in Williams, I think it was.
Yes, it was Williams.
Yeah, and he had amazing performances. Placed in the midfield, had lots of points for a reserve driver and rookie.
Of course, last year in Baku 2024, he actually came in 8th place, I believe.
Yes.
Just one place behind his teammate Alex Albon.
And now going into Lawson, who I'm excited about. I truly do love the rookies this year, and they have been performing very well. And Lawson especially, who qualified in 3rd, able to hold off the DRS train of Tsunoda, Norris, Hamilton, and Leclerc. And he was able to do so without weaving, unlike the Mercedes drivers of Russell and Antonelli.
Right, which ironically enough, they were weaving against each other when they were battling things out. And speaking of which, Russell did come in 2nd, once again, getting the podium without having to put in any of the efforts. And Antonelli finally seems like he's back, but this is the thing, though. This is the weird thing.
There's a caveat, isn't there?
This is the weird thing. They're no longer racing in Europe. This is an Asian race.
Not racing in Europe anymore. That I was literally desperate to say that. They're not racing it.
There is something about that. I don't know what it is.
European races are over, and now Kimi Antonelli's back on top and performing once again. I think he placed 4th after the end of this race, which is
yes, of course.
amazing.
And a couple of other surprise performances. Of course, Lawson being able to hold off the DRS train. He comes in 5th, his highest finishing position yet. Tsunoda came in 6th, the highest position of the season, and the highest since Abu Dhabi 2023.
Oh, yes. And
Norris did come back in 7th place, so pretty decent points for McLaren, but the World Constructors' Championship battle continues to Singapore.
Oh, yes. Also going into Russell a little bit, he was sick this weekend, so to perform this well and, end with the podium is pretty impressive. I know on social media a lot that whenever Kimi Antonelli and George Russell are behind some of the top drivers, they usually place 4th and 5th in the qualifying before the European races. So they always come out to tackle the top 3 to 4 drivers. So I think that's really funny. And then going into Norris a little bit, after the whole stint with Piastri, I feel like Norris lost his edge a little bit. And so he was, driving kind of monotonously, I would say.
I would say that for lack of a better word.
Kind of going through the motions, wasn't he?
Yeah, so he was kind of stuck behind. I can't remember which driver he was stuck behind. I think Tsunoda, maybe?
Yeah, he was definitely stuck behind Tsunoda for some time, which
he wasn't racing. He wasn't making any bold moves, no
I think this
passing.
honestly may be the saving grace for Yuki Tsunoda if he wants to at least earn a reserve test role sometime next season. I think that a full-on drive next season is highly unlikely unless Colapinto really messes it up and Tsunoda is a contender for the second Alpine seat, which they would be reuniting Gasly and Tsunoda. They would be doing us a huge favor.
I agree. I think obviously mental health plays a big role in all sports. And if you guys didn't know, Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly are best friends, and I think that would just be really well for the team to have that dynamic. You know,
of course, they'd be better off with their performances because they have such good chemistry, good trust in each other.
I agree.
They only crashed once at Silverstone 2022. Even then, it wasn't much of a crash. It was just a bit of a tag and a spin.
Yeah, it was a bit of a nick.
Yeah.
But yeah, going into some of the other drivers, Bortoleto actually a pretty
solid stint. And honestly,
solid stint.
He is my driver of the day because nobody is able to really make much of I believe it was a medium to hard tire switch at the very beginning.
Yes.
Think about it. It was at the very beginning. It wasn't during the first safety car period, like Esteban Ocon obviously took advantage of, but it was only a few laps after that where he was able to take advantage, pick up the pace, and I believe if he qualified Q3, he probably would have finished in the top 5.
Oh, I agree. And just going through the race, in the middle couple of laps, he was actually up to, I believe it was like 8th place.
Yeah.
And I was surprised to see his name up there. And if they hadn't taken a unstrategic pit stop, in my opinion, I feel like if he hadn't dropped down all of those places, he would have placed a little better. But then again, it is what it is.
Of course, it's neither here or there. We saw that with Bottas in Belgium 2024. So, unfortunately, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, what are you guys' personal drivers of the day?
That's a good question.
My personal was Bortoleto. I have 3 on here that would probably be chosen by the fan base and by their pure performances in this race, but give me yours.
Okay, I think Russell performing under all of these conditions. Might I remind you that it was quite windy race day. Though cars were flying everywhere, and the wind was kind of the determining factor in most of these crashes, I would feel.
And, of course, Russell has a history of excusing the rain as his sweat, or his sweat as the rain. If you look back to Spain 2023, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Indeed.
Free practice too.
Yeah, but Russell with his sickness and everything and placing so high, love it. Carlos always will be my favorite, but I don't know about driver. But I don't know about driver of the day. So Russell, I would say Tsunoda, of course, and I'll go with Bortoleto as well.
Of course,
he was quite impressive.
Satchit?
Yeah, definitely. So I'd say my driver, or I guess drivers of the day. I mean, Max Verstappen, y'all know how much I look up to him.
Completely dominant. He gave us a super big winning gap. I think he gave us one of the top 3 biggest winning gaps of the season from a winner.
Oh, yeah.
People are saying he's contending for the title, but, like, come on now. Like, he's not contending. He is contending for the title, but he's not going to get there. I mean, I feel like McLaren have already pulled such a huge gap.
Now, let me...
Okay.
No, you're right. You're totally right. Let me just tell you what he has to do in order to win the construct.
Okay.
He has to place in pole each race until the end. Okay, which I think is definitely feasible.
Yeah, absolutely.
It actually all depends on the rest of the drivers and how many points they gain. So if Norris and Piastri do not have a 2-3 for the rest of the season, it's more like 3-4 and below, then Max will definitely
still have
a shot.
So he'll have a shot by the finale, and then something has to happen by the finale, like a double DNF for McLaren, for Max Verstappen to take a comfortable enough,
that's the
margin.
Thing. So they have
even that comfortable margin would have been like 10 points if provided all of this happens.
Oh yeah. Provided all of this happens, actually, even if McLaren doesn't have the DNF and has a few points in like placing in the grid, Max will probably win by 1 point. I think I ran through some of the calculations at one point, and he will win by one singular point. So us Max Verstappen fans need a little bit of a bigger margin than a point. But,
Well, guess what? That's neither here or there.
Yeah,
and obviously, great race. I'm not super glad it's renewed for such a long amount of time, but they could definitely they could have it in rotations, honestly.
That's an interesting take, actually.
Instead of rotating Spa-Francorchamps and other traditional circuits like imagine if they try rotating freaking Spain, for Christ's sakes.
Oh.
They're actually planning on doing that with the new Madrid street circuit.
Yes,
But
do know
rotate circuits like the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, the Qatar Grand Prix, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and I would even argue you could rotate circuits like maybe the Hungarian Grand Prix.
Interesting.
Because they provide semi-entertainment.
Okay,
every now and then.
I definitely think that Azerbaijan should be kept all the time. I don't think it should be rotated. I do agree with some of the other takes, like the Hungarian one as well.
Yeah.
Madrid shouldn't even be there.
Yeah, no need
rotation.
for another street circuit.
We don't need a
The
Madrid street
citizens
circuit.
are protesting this. If I ask
mad.
if I ask my advanced Spanish teacher about this, he will probably be protesting it.
Like, why?
No.
Again, we have a lot of street circuits in these 24 races.
Yeah.
We have Las Vegas, we have Miami, we have
traditional kind of stimpy circuits like
Monaco.
Yeah.
And we have enough street circuits, and street circuits have always proved to not do as well. They are entertainment, but I don't know, they bring in a lot of entertainment, a lot of audience interaction. But we don't need another circuit in Madrid.
Look, that's a conversation for another time. But for now, we are going to end off the episode. Thanks for tuning in to the special report of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Make sure you catch us on our next episode where we will be discussing MotoGP.
Yep. And I'm Ash.
I'm Trey.
I'm Sachet.
And thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.